So welcome to this episode of the Simple Life Chat. I'm Russ Morris, and today we're welcoming back Embassy. After our special finale episode last series, Sid Williams joins us with an update from the village and the wider organisation. We'll look at how the Simple Life partnership has progressed and learn more about the Embassy community 6 months on. So Sid, welcome back. And for people who missed the episode 6 months ago, just tell us briefly what Embassy is all about, the charity.
Thanks, Russ. Yes. So Embassy is a charity. It started as a pragmatic response to an increase in homelessness that we saw in Manchester about 5 and a bit years ago. And we began as a homeless shelter. We purchased what had been Coldplay's tour bus. And COVID, as for many people, made a big difference for us. So that meant that we got a phone call from local government saying all shelters have to shut. That was just the case in England and Wales. But we didn't want to turf our friends out onto the street. And so we began leasing private properties off landlords. Didn't have the budget for that, nor did we have any idea how to be landlords. And at this point, we're becoming an actual proper housing association. Still a charity. And we sort of bumbled through COVID and then came out the other end and went, hang on a minute, let's not go back to being a shelter. Let's do what you can in a house, which is end people's homelessness on day one, teach them to shop, cook, budget, but also, more importantly, give them a dress rehearsal, a live practice run at running a home. So they make all sorts of fantastic mistakes with us. And then, actually the vast majority leave us no longer on benefits, full-time job, and not needing council housing, which is good for people who do need it. So that's what we've done, and we've grown in our experience, and the number of people we look after is growing. And
you're looking at building your village, aren't you? Your 40 houses, is it?
That's right, yes, well remembered. The Embassy Village, I'm told we should be on site in 6 weeks' time, although by the time this goes out, we'll be well under construction.
So nothing's been built as we speak at the moment. Nothing has been built yet, but hopefully construction will start soon.
Yeah, it should start mid-July 2024.
And we were talking before the episode started that the big challenge has been the rise in building costs. That's been the big hurdle for you at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a big hurdle, Russ. It was originally a £2.8 million build to build 40 homes plus an additional house for staff accommodation, plus a village hall, sports pitch garden. So you'd think, okay, that's reasonable. We got planning, and then we raised $3 million through our friends now at the Moulding Foundation. We thought, wow, this is we had to pinch ourselves, really. Yeah. This is amazing. And then the war kicked off before we even had a chance to finish the architectural designs, and the cost of materials in some cases doubled. So it became a £4.6 million build. So we've spent the last couple of years really, finishing off bits of elements of design, but doing a lot of trying to fundraise the gap.
That must be so frustrating. You think you're nearly there, and it's like one of those dreams, where you're just trying to reach out and grab something, and yet it just keeps moving further and further away.
Yeah, at times we've fundraised and thought we've done well, and it turns out we've fundraised just the inflation on building materials. So there's been a lot of, it has been a bit like being on a treadmill.
Yeah.
But thankfully we're finally on site soon.
Which is really, really good. So we'll talk about that in a few moments' time. But since our last episode, there has been some success stories, hasn't there? There's been some really nice things to come out of the last episode. So tell us about those.
Oh, well, yeah. So actually, literally off the back of talking with you guys last time, there's a woman in Kazakhstan was listening. So you never know how far these things are going to be listened to.
Yeah.
We thought, people in England will listen. Maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe Wales.
Wow, Kazakhstan.
So a woman in Kazakhstan was listening and sent us £20,000. Isn't that incredible?
No way.
There was also, you'll remember my colleague Emily was...
Yes, Emily was on the show last time, wasn't she? Yeah.
She was. And we were focusing quite a lot on our work with women. So that's why Emily was with me, because she's heading up specifically our women's work. And Emily was very happy to tell us about the fact that she had been homeless at times in the past, and that was as a result of abuse at home, and that she'd run away. Anyway, some of her wider family, all the way back in Australia, caught hold of this podcast. So we had listeners in Australia as well, right? One of those key family members at the time had not believed. And this is a common thing when abuse happens. You think, no, never, wouldn't, surely wouldn't. And so she had not been believed, had been supported but not believed, which was really painful. And this particular family member, I won't identify who, contacted Emily to say, now I believe you, I get it. And that's been a really healing thing. And and they've been now in contact a lot more. So Emily was saying, I mean, I'm chuffed that Embassy got some money, but at a personal level, it's been really healing for her that out of a podcast, the other side of the planet, family healing can happen. So who knows? Who knows what will happen this time?
Well, we've set the standard now, haven't we?
Pretty high bar.
Yeah, we're healing families and raising money from Kazakhstan.
So do it again.
What will happen at the end of this episode? But please, from everybody at Simple Life, pass on our best to Emily. That's a really nice, really nice outcome. So
it's really cool.
Yeah, because she was awesome last time. So amazing. And just have you spoke to the lady from Kazakhstan? Have you been?
I have, yes. She's actually English,
right?
But working in Kazakhstan.
Yeah,
it still feels kind of like quite very unexpected.
But that's I guess that's really good for you guys. Like people believe in it, and the power to donate that much money and be part of it is incredible.
Yeah, it's very encouraging and pretty humbling as well. When you're responsible for delivering on people's often quite, sometimes a large company will give you what you think perhaps is water off a duck's back, but then when a private individual gives you something that costs them a lot, it's not really this significant. This episode isn't a fundraising drive by any stretch, but it's not.
But please, we'll give you the details if you do want to donate at the end. We will.
Don't have a problem with that.
We'll give all that at the end. Now you've been working with Dakin, haven't you?
Yes.
The company Dakin. Now is it heat pumps and energy solutions they deal with?
I think they do a lot of things, but one of their products is air source heat pumps.
Right, and you've been working with those?
Yeah, I've been talking with Rachel, who works there. They're an incredibly generous company. They're supplying us with all the air source heat pumps for an entire village.
That's amazing.
It's actually worth a lot of money. I won't say how much, just
no,
embarrasses someone, but it's worth a lot of money. And there's another company called Temperature Control who are normally an installer for Dakin, and they're a smaller local Manchester company. And they said, hey, listen, we'll fit it all and all the kit and maintain and repair it for free for 7 years. That's pretty awesome.
Amazing. That's brilliant.
And honestly, those are just two. And I mention them and then feel guilty not for mentioning. There's about 40 companies who are making either gifts of finance or gifts of their time and their services. So we've had, some of the companies like, for example, Deloitte or Arcadis or Curtins Crooks Walker. I could go on. Some of these companies have given us easily $100,000 worth of their time over the last couple of years to get us to this point. And we did count close to 40 companies who've done something free of charge or discounted. So what's nice is it's like this team effort across the city. And there's that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. We've been talking about how it takes a city to raise a village, and that's what we do. We're raising this village as a team effort.
Amazing.
So it's pretty cool.
And obviously still working with Simple Life.
Absolutely,
that's going strong, which
that's why
is brilliant.
I'm here, Russ.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the latest there with you guys in Simple Life?
Well, I can't remember if we had one apartment with you or two last time we met. I'm not sure, but we now have 2 apartments with Simple Life.
Are they enjoying it?
Absolutely. We're on to person number 5 that we're helping. So one's moved on and we've still got 4 with us. We've got people in college, people in work, which is really exciting. If you think some of these women were sleeping on the concrete or in a shelter or in a tent, one of them was living in a tent just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Now one of them's got a full-time job. Another one's, most of them are in college at the moment. But it's really exciting to see the progress in people's lives. And we are discussing possibly more properties. But the other thing is we're also looking at another apartment for 2 of our chaps who kind of coming through our program elsewhere. They're moving on. They've got employment. They've saved up. They're getting on their feet. And so they said, well, hey, why don't we buddy up and cut the rent in half? So there's a 2-bed apartment somewhere, one of the Simple Life homes. They're moving in next week.
That's brilliant.
These guys, you'd be blessed to have them as your neighbours. Honestly, I'd live with them. They're some of the nicest guys I've ever met. So,
I'm almost in tears hearing these stories from, and you've been doing this a long time. I guess you never get fed up of just seeing people come from nothing and then, like you say, just moving on, setting up life. It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It genuinely is. And sometimes these things go full circle. We've only been doing this 5 years, but I feel like we're going to see things go full circle. I wouldn't be surprised if one day we employed people who lived with us in the past. And there's one chap, he was homeless and then with us, now housed. Then he set up his own little business, employed 3 people. And then he went on to be the chair of a big national kind of fundraising board committee, organising big events. And now he's part of, we're just in the process of establishing a sort of non-executive board of mostly business leaders from around the city. If I mention their names, you'd know most of them.
Right.
And our Neve at Simple Life is one of them. Yeah. But this guy, this particular chap who was homeless, he's also on that committee. And because he's good at hosting committees, perhaps he should chair us. I'd love the idea of that. What a sort of, I think it would be a beautiful thing to do.
That's amazing. And what a better person, he's been there. He's lived through it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, so there's a lot of good stories coming out of it. But on the ground as well, I was doing the things that are compulsory with Embassy are things like learning to shop, cook, budget.
And this is the good thing. If people don't know, it's not just giving them a shelter and, housing them for, a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever. You're changing their lives, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
Giving them the skills which they might not have had before.
Yeah, I don't think it works otherwise. So just to give you some figures, I thought, can I give you some figures?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you get an idea of what the difference is that we're making. Because it's very hard to get anything tangible. You've changed someone's life. What does that mean exactly? So the figures that I'm being given by local authorities that work with us is that they are seeing people staying in shelters now for about 10 to 15 years before council housing becomes available.
Wow.
So if you imagine waiting 15 years.
And what are these shelters like?
There's a real mix. Some of them perhaps better than others, but and in some cases it's more like a hostel situation.
I was going to say, so I think obviously there's a lot of shared like living areas and bathrooms. Of course.
And sometimes that's positive because you get community.
Of course.
But I think the uncertainty of remaining homeless for that long is difficult. But there's also, I won't say which local authority. There's 10 in Greater Manchester, so I think that's enough for anonymity. But I spoke to one of them just the other week, and I said, where are we up to now? And the woman said, well, Sid, I've got 150 people in shelters tonight, but I've got 337 on the street in the waiting list to get into those shelters. The average wait time in the shelters is 10 to 15 years for council housing.
Wow.
So it gives you an idea. That's a flavour of where we're at. Now, to give you an idea of the way that that's grown, 5 years ago when we started, it was 5.5 years was the average wait in a shelter. So that's nearly tripled in 5 years. But also there wasn't a queue on the street. So the number of people becoming homeless through cost of living crisis.
Is this I was going to say, what are the main drivers?
Yeah, cost of living's massive. Because when I first volunteered with homeless people, it was 2004, so 20 years ago. Back then there was only really 3 groups of people on the street that I found anyway, and they were all institutionalized. They'd either come out of the care system at 18 or what have you, or come out of the armed forces and not been supported, or come out of prison and not been supported. They were the majority of people anyway. But now we've got all those people still, but we must have several 100%, several times over your average Joes, men and women who just can't afford to make ends meet. Back then, there was no way you'd meet someone with a mortgage who's homeless. You do meet that now, just to give you an idea. I think probably, it's very easy to blame COVID and blame the war in Ukraine and all that sort of thing, but I think it's generally more the cost of living crisis, actually. That's my experience.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense if you're talking about people who, like I say, were homeowners and things like that. And it's crazy. Wow. So you've got a lot of work ahead of you.
So we have, I think, just to give you an idea, so I've talked about the depressingly long time people spend in a shelter or what have you, but also if you want to compare that to the average stay at Embassy, the average stay of us is 14 months, so compare that to 10 to 15 years, it's quite an important difference. The other difference is that I was being told by a local authority that it's at least 50%, perhaps more than that, of people who've been in a shelter that go to council housing choose to go back to the street. And it's normally because they are lonely and overwhelmed by the responsibility of managing home, either for the first time ever or for the first time in a very long time. And so people just go,
can't cope.
I'm suddenly on my own and I don't know how to run a home, or, you know. And so...
Because that's the telling stat, isn't it? That they're in shelters, 15 years? And then maybe go... And then they're with you guys for 14
months on average. But we've taken a lot of people, a lot of men and women from street to next accommodation. Only 2 have gone to council housing. The other 48, what have you, gone to private. Yeah. So that's good because we're unburdening the council housing waiting list for, say, you know, if you're a single mum with 3 kids, you can't work, can you, realistically? So it should be for those people. Or if you're disabled to the point that you can't work, it should be for you. People who are able-bodied and can work, let's aspire to do that, you know? So that's a lot of what we do is growing people's confidence. And then the whole experience that, yes, we train them to shop, cook, budget, all that. That's all compulsory. Lots of other optional stuff as well, sports and going tree planting. And we've got a group going to Africa in the summer to go help build out there. It's optional, but it's really good.
Yeah.
You know.
And again, it's building confidence, isn't it? And giving people a purpose, which I guess a lot of people in the homeless situation haven't felt like they've had.
Yeah, or life's dealt them some kind of trauma that's led to, I mean, there's been some kind of traumatic event if you become homeless, isn't there? So whatever that is, whatever that is, has knocked your confidence. So it's about helping people who know you have got something to offer the world, and then often realizing the opportunities you do have. And so, just to kind of give you those statistics, where we talked about how more than half of people from homeless shelters go back to the street once housed. For us, it's 92% success rate. So that's really important because you're seeing the difference. It's the same people. The difference is they've had a live practice run, like a dress rehearsal at running a home with us.
With the safety net of you guys.
Yeah, and made all their mistakes with us. Now, because only about 1/3 of our income comes from anything to do with rent, the rest comes from churches, private individuals, corporate. About 1/3 of our income is corporate.
Wow.
So if you own a company and want to support us, please get in touch. But what that means is people make their mistakes with us and then learn, and then by the time they leave us to a regular private landlord, they're ready, they've got that skill set and they're successful. And we're seeing people move on 92% with a job. So no longer on benefits. It's good for society and for them as well.
It's everybody wins, don't they?
Yeah.
How big's your team, Sid? How many people?
There's
have you got
8 of us. So
wow. So it's not a big team, is it?
Not really, but we're and we'll be growing at some point when we build this village.
Yeah, you'll have to. Yeah,
we will have to.
And obviously, when people move on, you're still there for the people you've helped before. They can always give you a ring.
Yeah, on paper, we offer visiting them regularly for 6 months. Yeah, you know. In practice, you get fond of people. So the staff, when they go, oh no, it's been 2 years, but can we just check in? And go on then. So there's a lot of that, but I think that's important. You know, when you've put in 99% of the effort at that point,
it's like
you're going to do the last 1%, aren't you?
I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but you want to see how people develop, don't you? You just,
of course, you do. Yeah,
you know, you're invested in people.
You've committed that much at that point. You know, sometimes. What we do is we get exempt housing benefit, which is like a higher rate because it's based on all the additional support and services we provide. But then what we then do is we're not allowed to charge them a lower rent once they got a full-time job than that sort of higher than average rate. So that's a problem. Except what we do is as a charity, we make a gift. We credit their rent account. So effectively, they're able to save up and move on. And sometimes we'll even go, stuff it, we'll pay your first month's rent deposit, get you over the line, sort of thing. So there is, being a not-for-profit where only a proportion of our income relies on rent anyway, gives us a flexibility that other registered housing providers and housing associations either aren't allowed to have or couldn't have because because we're not here to make a profit anyway.
Yeah.
So we can be really pragmatic and help people move on. Otherwise, we'd fill this village and then those people would live there and that'd be the end of it.
Of course. So, yeah. Because you've got to have that revolving door.
100%.
Get them set up.
Yeah.
And then get the next people
We
in.
want to help the next person.
That's it. That's good. So any stories over the past 6 months of some real success or some good characters you've had?
Oh my goodness. We have some lovely people as huge characters. I could talk broadly, but it's nice to hear specifics.
Give us one. Give us one.
In one of our properties, there's two lads. I'm going to call them Tom and Mark. One of them is tattooed from the neck down completely, I presume. I mean, I've
not seen him in the bath.
I can see. Yeah. And the other one I didn't know had tattoos. I know this sounds like a weird place to start, but you'll find out why in a minute. And they both said, Sid, we want to learn more about God and about the Bible and so on. All of our training is compulsory. Things like opening up the Bible or playing football or any of that, that's all optional.
Right.
But these two lads were keen. Said, okay. So we started each week, and at one point they found a Bible verse that they both thought was really cool. And I said to Tom, it's a shame you've not got any space left because you could get it tattooed. So we were laughing about this, right? Yeah. And then Mark says, I got a tattoo, We're like, do you? And so he says, yeah. He says, across my chest, it says, only God can judge me. Like the classic biker tats.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, okay. We got to the end of this session together where we'd be learning about how God's love is a free gift and that he's purchased our salvation for us. It's not like a stepladder. You got to somehow be good enough. And he said, Sid, I've realised my tattoo's wrong. I said, what do you mean? And he said, it should say only God can judge me. And underneath, but he hasn't. And I just thought, it's such a beautiful revelation of God's love for him,
Yeah.
And so he's now, both of those lads are now part of the group heading out to Kenya with us.
They're
going to
brilliant.
go volunteer in the school and stuff.
Oh, great.
But yeah, both of them are making huge progress. Mark's now working, which is really cool.
Right.
We're really pleased to see that. Tom, I think will be soon. We're just working on a few personal things, but he's making huge progress. There's nothing more kind of rewarding to seeing someone who's like realised they have a purpose and realised they have a hope in the future and going, all right, I'm gonna take the opportunity.
Is it really hard when people first come to you guys? Like, what sort of state are they in? Are they emotionally broken, physically broken, or is it a bit of everything?
Everyone's different, but I'd say emotionally, pretty much everyone.
And is it hard work? Like, just tell us quickly on the journey to turn them from like a broken soul to someone who's going to be moving into their own house with a job. And
it is, it's funny, because I'm fortunate enough that, I come from a different background. Yes, I was briefly homeless because I was a refugee during the war in Africa, but it's not quite the same story.
Yeah.
So I try to, I sympathise. I couldn't hand on heart say I'm empathising. So from where we're sat, it's easy to go, just take the opportunity, take the job. It's easy. But, we had a guy who lost 3 jobs and it was on the 4th attempt that he finally got the confidence and, we went to work with him. We're like, all right, stuff it. I will, it was my colleague actually said, right, you know what? I'm going to drive to work, but then we'll take the bus together and we'll do the job together for the first however many days it takes. And he did the best part of a week. Oh. So this company got 2 employees for the price of 1. And then they'd come home after work and then have dinner together and then debrief and then do it again.
Yeah.
And that's what it took. And yet that particular guy is moving into his own place next week. And he saved up a couple of grand. He's got first month's rent deposit up front.
So good.
He started part-time, but was his confidence was really low, even though the offer was for a full-time job. Yeah. We negotiated a part-time job. He was one of the lads who came to Africa with us last year. And while he was out there, of course, he was working full-time. We hadn't pitched it to him like that. And he while he was there, he said, I can't believe the work ethic of these Kenyans. Mm. And anyway, he came home without any prompting, went to his employer and said, I'm ready for full-time. Wow. And he's saved up and he's moving on next week. So we're really excited about that. But that has taken a good year and a half. Mm. But it was lack of confidence. But then if you knew where he'd come from, you'd understand, because he'd lived in with his mum, being her primary carer for 16 years, and then she died. There's the practical side of what we do, training people, teaching them to shop and cook and budget and going to work and all that. But you got to couple that with the individual, where they're at emotionally, and sometimes it takes a while to build that confidence. And the reason we do mad things like go to Africa, or some things that look frivolous, like going to play golf together or going to the seaside or whatever, that's where you build the relationship of trust that means they'll sit and do boring things like budgeting.
Yeah, they're on your side, and I guess
100%, yeah.
For one reason or another, they've lost trust in people, I guess, because something bad.
We, one of our newest employees, she's only been with us for a week and a half, went to have dinner there's a house we've got with 4 chaps in it, and it was her and one of our long-term male employees, but they sat down and she was raving about meeting them all yesterday. She said, honestly, they're such nice guys, and they were there sort of like fighting back the tears, saying Embassy is like a family to us. That's how we would describe it, is we finally have a family. And like 2 of those guys are Muslims. We're a Christian charity, but they're like, you guys have treated us better than anyone. You have become a family to us. And so I think we're trying to obviously respect everyone's different beliefs and things, but we're trying to show that love to everyone.
Yeah.
And then people feel like, they're saying we finally feel safe, we finally feel taken seriously. And it's on that foundation that we're going to rebuild our lives. And
it's that sort of stuff you just can't put a price on. And I know you mentioned earlier about, it's hard to quantify changing lives, but that sentence you just said there, Sid, that's exactly what it's about. You are changing lives. You are giving people family and giving people, second chances. And I think it's amazing.
Sometimes it's a second chance. Sometimes it's genuinely their first chance. If you hear some of the stories, you think, wow, from day one you were abused or neglected, or you didn't have a first chance that you blew. It was blown before you were born. And then others, if we're honest, they've blown it. But it doesn't matter.
Everyone's got a story. But what you don't judge, you're just there and you're doing something incredible. And it's great. And you can see why after the first episode where you spoke to you last time, you can see why people have donated and got involved. So let's hope that, after this, you can make a difference. You hear what Sid and the guys are doing at Embassy, simply changing lives. So if people want to get involved, how do they contact you?
If you jump on embassyvillage.co.uk, you can have a look there. There's a contact option there. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Yeah. We are about £700,000 short and starting building in 6 weeks' time. So if anyone has £1 million that they really don't want and it's burning a hole in their pocket, now you know what to do. But in all seriousness, you might be thinking, flipping exit, I can't do that, but I would give £10 a month or what have you. Yeah, jump on the website. It's really easy to do, and you can journey with us on this adventure. We're doing something that's a first in Manchester, but also a first for the UK. This kind of approach of doing everything in-house is great, because at the moment it's a bit piecemeal. People have to remember to go to this organisation for this, that for that. And there's some brilliant organisations out there, don't get me wrong, but the opportunity and the privilege really to bring it all under one roof and go, hey, you're homeless today, but we're giving you the keys, and we've got an entire plan that you can see of how you're going to get to where you want to be. That's unique.
And it's working. So let's hope, you can expand and, take it to other cities in the UK and, beyond that maybe in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, let's see.
But, maybe not you, Sid. You sound like you've got a lot on your plate at the moment.
Quite a lot on. I'm going to do one thing really well and then duplicate that, not have 10 lots of chaos. But
But what I'm saying is what you're doing is phenomenal. It is working. And we wish you every success. We'll no doubt get you back on the Simple Life Chat.
I'll be glad to be back. And I know it's obvious that it should be said, but I do genuinely mean it. I'm very grateful to Simple Life and to Sigma Capital, because without you, we wouldn't have been able to launch our women's work. So that's been huge for us. And it's been huge for the city, because when we had to train Emily up, we were like, where can we send her to shadow anyone who's housing homeless women straight from the street? And we had to go to Liverpool to find the nearest charity that was doing that.
Wow.
There isn't anything apart from us now doing this. That's why we're yes, the village is like the big sort of headline, but the reality is we're desperate to grow our women's portfolio of properties, and we're making some moves towards it. I can't say too much at the moment, but it looks like we're quite likely to take on another 8 apartments. So
great. Well, it's so good to catch up with you, Sid. Thank you so much.
You,
just
Russ.
give us the contact details again.
Yeah, embassyvillage.co.uk. If you jump on there, you can email us, you can donate, you can learn a lot more about what we're up to.
Amazing. Thank you, Sid. Thanks for coming in today and being on the Simple Life Chat. Good luck.
Thanks, mate.
Keep doing your good work.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learning more about the inspiring work Sid and the team at Embassy are doing. To explore their mission further, head over to simpelifehomes.co.uk, where you will also find more information on this series of the Simple Life Chat. Don't forget to catch the other episodes in this series on your favourite podcast platform. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.